So, welcome back to another episode of the Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast with me, Nick, and my mate Dom. We're on episode 30 now, so that means that hopefully you've been with us for the full journey. If you're recent listeners and viewers, welcome. Thanks for the support. We've got a hell of a back catalogue of things. Some of those are quite topical, so they might not translate that well, 3-4 months down the line, but we hope that the content is always of interest and relevance to football fans. For those who are new to us, and we've had quite a lot of uptake recently, we're just two match-going football fans who both support Middlesbrough, both season ticket holders at Middlesbrough, but Dom uniquely is also a season ticket holder at Everton. So he's had years of hurt supporting Borough and Everton in equal measure. But he wouldn't be seen dead in a Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast. And the reason we've called it that is because we think we like to talk about everything that's wrong with football, really. And the Half and Half Scarf is the embodiment of that. So, as I mentioned, we're on episode 30. And this week, and because we like to be as topical as we can, and we record these maybe a week or 10 days in advance, but we're recording this on the Friday, what are we on, the 9th of January, which is the start of FA Cup third round weekend, which we'll come on to that in a second. But we're going to discuss what's wrong with the FA Cup in 2025, and we think there's plenty to discuss. And to discuss that with me, welcome Dom to episode 30. Nice to see you again, mate.
And nice to see you, mate. A nice early start on this January the 9th as we slowly get back into the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. Episode 30. Andy, I can't believe it. Episode 30. Who knew we'd get to 30 episodes in? But, me and you were always confident we would, mate, because we've got plenty to talk about. So, yeah, let's crack on. Lots to talk about.
I think you're allowed to say I can't believe it for 30. We'll do that on the numbers that matter, 30, 40, 50, etc. Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Dom used to say it every episode, and Andy Newbold, bless him, used to say it to me, why does he always say I can't believe it's episode 12 or 13? So we've now got this episode sponsored by Andy Newbold, the I can't believe it's not episode 30. So anyway, enough of that. Quickly, we usually do apparel. We usually do merchandise. For those who watch on YouTube, I'm wearing my this is an old, but I love it, warm Borough hoodie, plain blue, Borough crest on it. It's the warmest hoodie in the world, and obviously it's a bit chilly today. I've got the heater next to me, so by the end of the episode I might be dripping with sweat. It's a brilliant hoodie. I wear it occasionally for away games, just when I need the layers. Dom, you're now still looking like a retired architect who drives a Saab. No merch this morning, but yeah. you are going straight into work after this, aren't you, sir?
Well, I'm doing a little bit more, and I was doing a bit this morning early on. And it's just as per the last episode, mate. It's just warm. I was on a work meeting in the week, and someone said I look like a poet. I was like, okay, right. Oh my god. So we thought things look like a fashion designer. Someone else thinks I look like a poet. I don't think I look like any of those things, but it's just a roll neck. I will get back to the football shirts on the next one, I promise. It's mainly to do with the fact that I'm nice and warm and snug in this.
Okay. Well, I would say for those who are looking and watching this on YouTube, final reference, your inverted commas studio looks like it's got a new addition, Dom. What's that? What's the new addition you got there?
I've now got an on-air badge, which my daughter got me for Christmas, which I thought, do you know what? I'll put it on and light it up, and along with the branded microphone and our t-shirts. We need to get new branding because we've obviously changed our branding since. But yeah, I mean, it's the height of professional now, mate. I mean, microphone foams, t-shirts, on air, light up things.
Loving it.
I mean,
loving it.
We've nailed it, haven't we, mate? That's it.
I think so. Let's not rest on those laurels. But I do love that. And was it me who got you that?
Mia got me that. Yeah. Really good.
Well done, Mia.
Love it. Yeah.
Well done, Mia. Right, let's get on to the FA Cup. Okay, we've called it What's Wrong with the FA Cup. For those who are a younger generation, will be probably starting to listen to this and maybe switching off already, thinking, well, the FA Cup doesn't matter. It's like, so what? It's not as important as finishing sixth in the Premier League. Or the FA Cup, yeah, no one cares. I'm telling you now, if you're of a certain age, and I mean of a certain vintage, the FA Cup is important. The FA Cup always was important, and the FA Cup is still a trophy and a competition to herald and behold, and it should be seen as that. And because it's not, that's what's caused us to discuss this on this episode. So, what's your view on the FA Cup, Dom? I love it. I love this weekend. I love third round weekend. I love the draw for the third round. I love the intrigue of part-time taxi drivers and bar owners who are still, in the cup, getting drawn against a Premier League, giant at home, and the whole sort of build up to that and whatever. But I also hate a lot of the draw, which I'm going to come on to shortly, when you get teams from the same divisions playing each other. Like, what's the point? What's your view on the FA Cup in general, mate? I bloody love it, always have done, and I've watched it since 1970 was my first ever FA Cup, and the Leeds and Chelsea battle was one of the things that got me into football that summer, along with the World Cup in colour, which I've mentioned previously. I love the FA Cup. I love the history. I love the whole thing about it. And I could probably rattle off who's won it every year since 1970 in a pub quiz, under pressure, with a gun to my head, if I had to. What's your view, mate?
I'm the same. I would have to agree wholeheartedly. I love the FA Cup. I've been watching it since the late 70s when I first started getting into and watching football. So I think my first memory of it is the 79 Cup final.
Ooh.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Alan Sunderland
winner against Man United. Yeah. And he'd, funnily enough, been in this team he'd been in the Ipswich team the year before that beat Arsenal in 78. So that was my first memory of it. And I'm like you. I've watched it every year since. But I have to say, bizarrely, I like it more now in terms of watching the early rounds and the so-called smaller clubs. We're probably using bad wording there, because there's no such thing as smaller clubs for me. They're all just great clubs. I'm less concerned about the final now. Back in the day, the final was the heyday. Yeah. I'm not so much bothered about the final anymore, because usually it's teams I don't really want to watch. So I'm more engaged now than I ever was, because I love watching those ties, like you said, watching a non-league club play, a championship team or something like that, and I love all that. So yeah, I'm with you. It's big competition, and clubs should take it seriously.
We'll talk about finals shortly. Well, a bit later on, because we're going to build up to that. Like the FA Cup, we're going to start with a third round, and then we're going to build up to the semi-finals and finals. So let's start with my first rankle. First of all, the games are played over 4 days now. So we've got games tonight, Friday night, Saturday lunchtime, Saturday 3 o'clock, Saturday tea time, Sunday at various kickoff times, and even on Monday night, right? Now, that's just for TV, and selling the TV rights to Discovery Plus and TNT Sports is just sacrilege. I had a look at the TV schedule, and the BBC have got 2 games. I'll come on to one of them that they've chosen, which is a disgrace of the game that they've chosen, as if anyone gives a shit about what they've chosen for one of their BBC games over the weekend. But there's 2 games on terrestrial TV. The rest are all on Discovery Plus and TNT Sports over 4 days. Does that just not drag it out and devalue it? It just feels like there's no epicenter for it. There's no 3 o'clock Saturday, the teleprinter go in and Boreham would have scored away at Birmingham or something, that kind of stuff. There's the intrigue's gone, hasn't it?
I think a little bit, mate. I think it's almost become blended with what it's become fixture-wise, particularly in the Premier League and TV and Sky's dictation of it. I mean, the fixtures, slightly off tangent, but linked. If you look at the Premier League fixture list, it's just ridiculous now. Honestly, following Everton, I can't remember the last time we had a Saturday. Well, we had a Saturday fixture at Arsenal just before Christmas, which was an 8 o'clock kickoff last Saturday before Christmas, which was absolute bedlam in Liverpool, by the way. Chaos. But apart from that, we have now not got a Saturday game until March. Late March. So all our kickoffs are midweek, Sundays or Mondays, and the FA Cup is similar. So yeah, you could look at it in 2 ways and say, well, okay, if some of the the non-league teams and lower league teams are getting, say, a match covered on TV and they're going to get the TV money, they're probably not going to mind in terms of when their fixtures held, whether it be a Thursday night, Friday, whenever, if they're getting some TV money and additional revenue. But in terms of the actual fans, and I'm sure that maybe those fans wouldn't mind because they're one-off special games, etc. But there's something really, I mean, me and you are probably too old school, but there's something very special about a Saturday at 3 o'clock. It's just something lovely about a Saturday afternoon game. It's family, it's weekend. It takes the shine off it when you're rocking up to a game on a Thursday evening or a Monday night or a Sunday night. It's just not the same. It really isn't. And it is all about TV now and dragging it out and getting as many games on as they can. When really, traditionally, it should be about the fans of those clubs and attending those games and what's easiest for the fans to attend those games.
You usually play the vast majority of games in the FA Cup third round we played at the same time, 3 o'clock on a Saturday, by the end of which you would think, oh, there's some replays, we'll come to that. Or there are, we know who's through the next round already. I mean, they're going to do the draw, I think, on Monday night before or maybe immediately after Liverpool are playing. I can't remember Liverpool are playing on Monday night, someone that I don't care about. So you have to wait till like 10 o'clock on Monday night to see the draw. The good news, I guess, is for the TV people, is there's no replays to say, oh, it could be A versus B or A and B versus whatever. And that's another disgrace. No replays and straight to penalties. And I'll tell you why it's a disgrace, because proper match-going fans never give it a thought. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to Fulham tomorrow on the train from York with Rob, Julie, Dawn and Isaac, right? So we're all going down. I'm only going because it is a while since I've been to Fulham. I quite like Craven Cottage. The train tickets weren't too expensive. And I'm looking forward to watching Boro's reserves and returning injured players versus Fulham's B team, because literally that's what it'll be tomorrow. There won't be any, superstars on show for either side, I don't think. I think it'll be, it won't be taken seriously. However, when you look at it, Rob said to me earlier in the week, he said, the train coming back, Dad, he said, have you taken account of extra time and penalties? And I went, we're on the 6:30 back from King's Cross. I said, that's accidental because I nearly went for the 6. I never gave a thought to the fact that actually now, these days, it's a single game. It goes to extra time and penalties. So we might be legging it across London for the 6:30 if we don't sort it and settle it in 90 minutes. So the whole thing with no replays. And the other thing is, I think it gives, as a non-league or a lower league team, you usually get one chance, don't you? You get that one game, and if you get them to a replay, the second game, the replay is about money making, because you rarely get a win in the replay against a bigger club. You've had your chance, you've had your minute, you've missed it, haven't you, on that first game, irrespective of whether you're home or away. But it's a nice revenue generator for the smaller and lower league clubs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's something about a replay on a Tuesday night with a snow-covered pitch and an orange ball. I mean, I'm sounding like a right old fart now, aren't I? But, the orange ball, the pitch that's being cleared by the fans, the snow building up the sides of the advertising hoardings on a Tuesday night in January. I miss all that, and I'm definitely going to miss it all when it's just like 90 minutes plus extra time and penalties. The whole thing's just devalued, mate.
Yeah, and it's been driven by the Premier League and the Premier League clubs. And it was, Man City were a big driver in that, unfortunately, as well. Always moaning and whinging that they had too many games. Well, there's too many games because FIFA and UEFA want more and more football. But to be honest, if you're a successful club and you're doing well in the league and Europe and everything, you should just embrace it. Get on with it and stop moaning. That's just what it is. If it means you have to have a replay against a lower league club and you lose, well, tough, you lose. That means that it's less boring for all the other neutrals, that there's no top 6 team in there all the time, because that's basically what the organizations are trying to engineer all the time, that you'll get a top 6 team and 6 teams in the final, because everything's geared towards the top 6 teams in this country. So, and if anyone says it's not, they're lying. Everything's geared towards the top 6. So for me, I just think stop moaning, get on with it. Replays are brilliant. And me and you are also of the old school. I actually remember going back to, I think it was 1990, 1991. It was actually, funnily enough, Middlesbrough Everton, and it went to an initial. There was 4 matches. I can't remember what round it was,
Yeah.
but
Fourth
it
round, I
was
think
it.
it was. Was it
There
fourth
was
or
an
fourth
initial, yeah,
round?
but there was 3 matches in total. I think it was either 3 or 4 matches in total, because it was
Yeah.
back then. It was literally replay after replay after replay. Now, I do think, in looking back at that now, that is slightly strange. You think, well, that is madness, and it is. You don't want to get to that extreme anymore of it having to be replayed over 3 or 4 games.
But
But
one replay with
but
90
one
minutes, 90
replay,
minutes extra time and
yes,
penalties in the first replay. I'm
yeah.
okay. I'm all for
That's.
that.
I was just going to say the same. Remember a few years ago, I think it was Middlesbrough played Newport. Midweek game, snowy
Mm,
pitch, hostile atmosphere, freezing cold. Borough weren't up for it and got beaten. And
yeah.
and I remember similarly, Newport gave Man City. I think it was the same season. They gave Man City a really good scare as well. And
Mm,
that's the beauty of having a replay. You just might get a team on an off day where they just don't fancy the trip and the replay, particularly if it's going back to the, it's not being played. So say the first leg was, say, the first match was at the Premier League ground
yeah.
or Championship's ground, for example. Then it going back to the smaller. I keep saying the smaller teams, but you know my point. And they're the ones where you get upsets, because sometimes the bigger teams are thinking, oh, I just don't fancy it tonight, and that's when and I think that's where the FA Cup's lost something. It's all now
Yeah.
down to streamlining and efficiency and keeping it clean. And there's younger generations now being brought up on that penalties are great and a really big entertainment spectacle. They're not really. At the end of the day, it's such a shame after all that football that something should be decided by a penalty shootout. It's like when the Champions League, you go through all those months and months and months, and it ends up being decided by a penalty kick.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. So I'm with you. I think there should be at least one replay. I think it should. I think it gives. It is a much needed revenue driver first and foremost. Um, and I think in the FA Cup as well, it is slightly different, isn't it? Because you get more allocation as away fans, and you do get a
Yeah.
percentage of the gate receipts, etc. At the away venue. So it is different in terms of revenue streams. But just for the atmosphere of the FA Cup in general, it just seems like it's gone by the way of everything else now, where it's literally
Mm,
one game, bang, done, we move on, which has taken away some of the magic of some of these teams that, people forget that, I think the very first round of the qualifying of the FA Cup starts in July, August.
yeah.
And it's just so for some of these lower league teams, you finally get to the third round. They've probably played eight rounds to get
I
there.
know. Yeah.
So, and do you know what? Even getting to the third round is probably amazing enough, but just give them a fighting chance. That's the magic
Mm,
of it. And every single season, there's always some upsets and there's always some amazing games. And
yeah.
that's what I love. And are we being critical, saying, should it be spread over 3 or 4 days when it's even giving people the chance to watch it on TV? Possibly. But I did like the last few years where the rights were with both the BBC and ITV, because
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the games were on BBC and ITV. They were all free to terrestrial
Now,
TV.
I don't mind if they spread the games, but they make them accessible. But
Yes. Yeah.
Discovery Plus and TNT are behind a paywall, and unless you're supporting that team and you want to buy a Now TV subscription for that weekend, the chances are, if you support a lower league club, you probably haven't got a Discovery Plus or a TNT account, simply because you are. I don't know what's happened to my video there. I don't know what's happened to my video. There you go. Come back. Simply because, oh, I've gone blank. Oh, there you go, I'm back.
Well, there you go.
Simply because you're not watching that level of football on a regular basis, so
Yeah.
it's kind of inaccessible. Anyway, let's come back to another point on that. About, you mentioned when bigger clubs, Premier League clubs, maybe don't fancy it. They don't fancy it, mate, usually because they've got a weakened team, and I don't know why. If you are a Brighton, a Fulham, a Bournemouth, and Everton, these kind of clubs who are not going down and not really actively certainly not pushing for the top four, might be around the edges of a European spot. Why do they play lesser and weakened squads in the early rounds of the FA Cup at the risk of getting knocked out? Because I think the key is there. If you look at Palace last year, Palace won the FA Cup. Palace are in that bracket for me. if they'd have not taken the FA Cup seriously, they'd have gone out and they'd have missed all that furore and enjoyment and history that they've created and that fan experience at Wembley. And beating Man City was fantastic, by the way. But,
It
you
was.
know, but they did that because they took the FA Cup seriously from round three. Why do teams, and including Championship teams, by the way, as I say, I'm going to see probably Borough's second string versus Fulham's second or third string tomorrow because neither team are taking it seriously. You can argue that Borough are pushing for promotion, but a cup run is good for your morale anyway. You know, we've done really well in the cup over a number
We
of
have.
recent years. You know, we've beaten Man United, we've beaten Spurs. Um, you know, we've been on cup runs. We've beaten Man City and won in the not too distant past. And a cup run's great for the fans, but you've got to take it seriously. Why do teams in the Premier League, particularly in that middle envelope, why do they not bother?
Well, from an Everton perspective, we do. We don't field weakened teams. I suppose if we get a third round or fourth round tie against us, a lower league team, we it might mean we bring a few changes. It might mean that Pickford doesn't play and we can rotate a few players, but we generally play quite a strong team. Tomorrow we've got Sunderland at the Hill Dickinson Stadium at 12:30 kickoff, and I think he'll be trying to field the best side he can. I mean, bearing in mind we're absolutely decimated with injuries and suspensions, which we'll probably we might discuss in our next pod around the managerial updates and season so far. There's lots to
Yeah.
discuss there. The game's gone, mate. When you're getting sent off for a slight pull of the hair, and it's classed as violent
Well,
conduct.
that's not what we're talking about today, mate. So
We're
we'll
not.
leave
I
that
know.
one.
I know. Anyway, but that slight tangent, and but Everton do take it seriously, and even though we've got a decimated squad, I think he'd be, even if we hadn't, I think he'd be putting his strongest team out tomorrow. As I say, we had no injuries, suspensions, people away at the AFCON Cup. He'd be definitely taking it seriously. Evertonians are desperate to win a trophy, come hell or high water, and they know that their best chance of doing so is via the League Cup and the FA Cup because they know they're not going to win the league, which is
Yeah.
why when we got beaten by Wolves in the League Cup and he tweaked the team and pulled a few players out and had to bring them on late on and we lost the game 2-0, people were really annoyed because we were playing really well in the league at that point. People were just like, why don't you just play the same team? Why don't you just play the same team that won on Saturday? And so I think Everton do try and other teams that I'm not so sure, mate, whether it's this new thing now of teams are so worried about the fact that if they get injuries in the cup, that it might then jeopardise their position in the league of the Premier League. I do think to some extent that comes into it. I can't say I pay that much attention to how weakened the teams, other Premier League teams play and Championship teams play. I think they definitely rotate, and I think there's definitely some teams, again, your top six probably come into that, where they rotate heavily, particularly if they're in Europe, because for them, sadly, it isn't the priority anymore. I think for them, if they get through the rounds, it's a bonus, and they'll feel stronger teams later on.
Okay, let's take an example, right? Tomorrow evening, Saturday evening, or Saturday sometime, I don't know when, it's on BBC. And I don't know why BBC would choose this, right? Why do the BBC think that anyone is interested in Spurs versus Aston Villa? Two teams in the Premier League who won't be fielding proper sides. Why is that a televisual spectacle? Derby versus Leeds, Cambridge versus Birmingham, Pompey versus Arsenal, even Fulham versus Borough, all overlooked for an all Premier League tie, Spurs versus Villa. What an absolute crock of shit that is by the BBC, because I guarantee you won't recognise half of those teams. I mean, Spurs are not going to win anything this season because they're shit, right? But their best chance of winning anything, they're not going to win the Champions League. They're certainly not going to qualify again for the Champions League via their league position. They're out of the Carabao Cup, as far as I'm aware. Yes, yeah. I'm sure they are. That's the semi-final stage, isn't it? So Spurs' best chance of winning anything and getting glory, inverted commas, because Spurs love the idea of winning a trophy, they don't do it very often, is in the FA Cup. I guarantee we won't recognise half of the Spurs team tomorrow, and Villa will do the same. But Villa have got a slightly better excuse. I guess they are. Well, no, they haven't actually. They're
They
fighting
haven't.
for top. They're fighting for top four, but they'll still be fighting for top four, irrespective of whether they get through against Spurs or not. So play your full teams. And BBC, you're a disgrace. The other game you've chosen, BBC, is exactly what the FA Cup's about. You got Macclesfield at home to Palace. That's a proper FA Cup tie. That's Palace, the holders, going to Macclesfield, in a lower league setting that is, cold and windy and potentially a banana skin. That's
I
exactly what the
agree.
FA Cup's about. Why have you chosen Spurs versus Villa? Spurs B team versus Villa's reserves. No one cares. BBC, do better. Derby versus Leeds looks to me like an absolute classic. They hate each other because of historic stuff with Lampard. Derby a championship, Leeds a lower end of the Premier League, and there'll be some spice in that game.
Yeah,
And it's on TNT.
well, all I would say is I would playing devil's advocate. I don't know how the picks are organised and whether they had no choice but to pick a Premier League one. I don't know whether that comes into it. I don't know. I don't know they what the criteria is in terms of what they pick and
Yeah,
whether they're governed or steered towards certain picks. If they're not, why on earth you'd pick a Premier League tie? I do not know. I mean, the Premier League, any Premier League team playing a Premier League team, they get enough coverage through Sky in the Premier League, for God's sake. I mean, there's a match every single bloody night now. I
yeah,
mean, the fact that Arsenal were playing Liverpool last night in the league on a Thursday just tells you everything. It also tells you that gives you another indication of where the FA Cup ranks in terms of what Sky and the Premier League think in terms of their
yeah,
priorities. So, both of those teams will probably be playing their FA Cup matches, I imagine, on Monday next
yeah.
week or something like that. So, it's they get enough coverage. So why, yeah, and Aston Villa Spurs, Christ, it's hardly going to be a classic, is it? I don't think. I mean,
No.
just yeah, of all the you just reeled off a few there, and there's probably many others that you'd much rather watch as a neutral on terrestrial TV that has a bit of gnarl
I,
and grit and
I,
rivalry
I,
to it.
I think Portsmouth versus Arsenal is exactly what the FA Cup's about.
Absolutely,
Fratton
Bratton
Park,
Park as well. Yeah,
filled to the rafters, playing the current top of the league Premier League team. They'll fancy an upset until Arsenal score. Arsenal might win it 4-0. You never know. But if Pompey score first and Fratton gets erupted, that's what you want to watch. I've got here, even Fulham versus Borough. Okay, Fulham are at home. If that was a reverse fixture, that might be more tasty for the neutral. But Derby Leeds, Cambridge versus Birmingham,
that'd be a great
Birmingham,
match. Be
Birmingham big
brilliant to watch.
spenders.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it would. And they're away.
Derby Leeds a bit, like you said. There's so much rivalry there. You want to watch matches where there's some needle, where there's
Yeah,
quite a lot invested, and those teams will want to win. I'm not saying that any team doesn't want to win, but I do think for certain Premier League clubs there's less of an appetite, and I don't understand why. Because when you look at it, you've literally got most clubs every season essentially have got a chance of winning 3 trophies. But let's face it, for most of them, they've got a chance of winning 2. And
yeah,
then let's face it again, most really they've probably got a chance of maybe one or progressing quite well in one, which is the League Cup.
yeah.
So you absolutely should take it seriously. And even the Premier League teams that are in Europe, you've still got 4 chances, and even then, it's how hard is it to win a trophy? Now we've gone through this before. There's more to football than just winning a trophy. I get that, but when you're in it, you've got to take it seriously. You've got to go in with a mindset of, well, let's enjoy it. Let's try and win it. Let's go as far as we can.
Tell
Look
that
at
to Palace
Borough.
fans. Tell that to Palace fans
Well,
who
exactly.
they had their day out at Wembley, still underdogs on the day, and they beat City and they won the FA Cup. Then they won the whatever they call it, Community Shield. And then they're in Europe, aren't they? All as a result of taking this competition seriously and putting it at front and centre of a fan experience. I'll give you a quick example. I've got loads of friends who are Leeds fans. I don't know why I'm friends with them, but I am Leeds fans. And Leeds have got a terrible, and I mean a terrible history in the FA Cup of going out in the third round. The younger ones say we don't care. It's all about Premier League survival. The older ones are like, yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have a cup run? I asked a Leeds fan, do you know when the FA Cup fourth round draw is. He said, we just call it a Monday because we're never in there. Leeds are
Yeah,
never in the fourth round draw. I love that. It was a great call. We just call it a Monday because we're not in there. But Leeds don't take the FA Cup seriously. Now, Leeds on their day, if they get the right draw, they beat Derby, they get a favourable draw in the fourth round. The fifth round, they get a home game against somebody under lights at Ellen Road and get through. Suddenly, you're two steps from Wembley because it's semi-final, which is a disgrace. But you're three steps from the final. They start taking it seriously then, but a lot of the teams have already gone by the wayside by the time they should. They start taking it seriously in the fifth and sixth round, don't they?
yeah, and I don't understand that. I mean, we know what Ellen Road's like. I mean, good God,
Yeah,
on it. When they're at it, the Leeds fans, it's such a hostile place to go and play your football and be a fan. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting one that when you think about it, there's such a big club, and you'd love to see Leeds do. I mean, I'm saying that as a Middlesbrough and Everton fan, but I'm a neutral or a football fan. I want to see good clubs do well. I want to see different clubs do well. I don't sick of seeing the same teams in the
yeah.
semi-finals, quarter-finals every year. And yeah, it'd be great to see a team like Leeds, really go for it. Teams like Newcastle as well. I mean, the further you go, the more powerful it is and the harder it is to play at these, especially if you're playing them at home. And yeah,
Mm.
all of a sudden, I think even the fans who are a bit apathetic towards it, once you suddenly get to last 16, fans start to think, actually, we're only 2 games away from a final. It's a
Yeah,
bloody good
yeah,
day out. We could do something. If the draw's right, we might get to a final. And
yeah.
it does get you excited, and it's and again, semi-final should never be played at Wembley. That's just sacrilege as well. That
Disgrace.
they should be played at neutral grounds near where in the in between the clubs that are playing the tie.
There are
Shouldn't be at
plenty. There are
Wembley.
plenty as well, aren't there? Now you look at it.
And
You
lots
look at
of
it
fabulous
now.
stadiums as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the London. You got the London Stadium. If you had to use a soulless place, you got Tottenham Stadium. You've got Hill Dickinson. You've got Old Trafford. Still,
Anfield,
it's a
Old
shithole.
Trafford,
Anfield, Old
Etihad. You've got them
Trafford.
all, haven't you?
Yeah,
You got
yeah. Villa Park.
Villa
You could.
Park is a traditional, and that was part of the magic for me of the FA Cup. The semi final will be played on a neutral venue, and it will be generally somewhere fair for the two clubs
Mm,
to get to. Whereas now, always at Wembley, which is ridiculous. Always stupid kickoff times. Sometimes on a Sunday where they don't give a shit about the fans trying to get home.
no.
Often it favours the London club, and the ones from the north are stuck going home at God knows when and playing at God knows when.
Yeah.
And that also just devalues the final a bit. The semi-finals are at Wembley, and I mean, and I sound really old-fashioned now, but the new Wembley is completely soulless, by the way, and round Wembley.
Yeah.
It used to have a certain magic about it back in the day. It just doesn't anymore.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I'd I'd like to say. I mean, when you look, I mean, Middlesbrough as well. I mean, I know when we set out in the cup, we've had some really good cup runs of late, and I know when we get into it and we start going through the rounds and we kind of buy into it more. But we do take it seriously, but you can tell it is not a priority, particularly because the championship is so brutal,
yeah.
and sometimes it can derail where you're at in terms of your championship season, and there is a risk of injuries, etc., and all of that. And I know they're kind of
That's
feeble
football,
reasons,
though,
but
Dom.
no,
That's
no, no, no. I'm not
football.
making excuses. I was just about to say, but that's football. That's the reality of what it is. That's what the
Yeah.
season presents, and it's a chance to give your fans some magic. I mean, look at Middlesbrough's cup runs in Europe over the years. Getting to the UEFA Cup final, you can't. Again, we always say moments. No one was expecting that, but as it builds and it goes on round by round, that's something that lives long in the memory, just like a really good FA Cup
Yeah.
run does. And I was going to say the flip side is sometimes you could say, it could derail your season, but actually sometimes a cup run can really get your season into gear because you're playing good football. It boosts your confidence.
Mm,
Players come in that might not be playing and give the manager food for thought in terms of putting him in the league games.
yeah.
You might start firing. Fans get behind it, and all of a sudden it can kickstart and trigger a better run in the league. So I just think embrace it. At the start of the season what you're up against in terms of your games. Just embrace it. In the first 2 rounds, third and fourth round, they make room in the schedule on the weekends for it. I know you've got to play extra games in the week to make room for it, but it's as a player, surely you want to be in those games. You want to be part of it, and you always hear the old cliches every week of, oh, I'd rather just keep the games coming thick and fast. And especially if you've had a bad game, you'd rather get back on and
Yeah,
play again in 2 or 3 days' time. So for me, there's no real issue. Just get on and do it and play it and
exactly.
enjoy it. And as a player, you want memories, don't you? So if you can get something out of that and have a run, and also you've got all the other things, haven't you? You put yourself in the shop window. You're getting yourself out there that other teams might be interested in the summer or January transfer. There's loads of other reasons why, but just in general, just that magic of it feels back to old school normal football, and I like when VAR's not involved as well. So yeah,
Exactly. Well, two things you picked up to pick up on there. One is in terms of memories from a fan's point of view. If I said to my lad Rob, "Give me some of your football memories," being a Borough fan, I guarantee one of them would be winning 2-0 at Man City away in the FA
yeah,
Cup. One of them would be winning at Man United under lights in a penalty shootout in just after COVID, pissing down with rain, 10,000 Borough away fans, and we won on penalties. God knows how we got absolutely hammered that game, and we won on a penalty shootout at Man United. And beating Spurs at home
yeah.
with an extra time winner from a local lad. These are things that fans buy into, but the FA Cup, it doesn't seem to want to give you those memories anymore. But the other one is the shop window, which is the irony of a few seasons ago, 2 seasons ago, it probably was now. Borough versus Aston Villa at the Riverside, and Morgan Rogers played for the Borough against Villa. And by the end of the window, he'd signed for Villa, and the rest, as I say, is history. And
Yeah,
Morgan Rogers that day was fantastic for the
he
Borough.
was.
We got beat. We got beat. I think it was 2-1 in the end, or 2-0 it might be. I
Yeah,
can't. But we got beat by a better side. But it wasn't their full side, by the way. And Morgan Rogers had a great game, and they made Morgan Rogers their number one priority as a signing that window. And he wasn't even that great for us at the time. He'd started to become the player he was. We've discussed him previously. But shop windows are a thing as well. You're playing against bigger clubs and you're thinking, it's January, by the way, the windows are open. If I play really well and they've already had an idea that they might fancy me, why wouldn't you step up a gear or get a loan move or get more playing time somewhere else? There's loads of reasons why the FA Cup should be taken seriously. It feels to me like it's got death by 1,000 cuts, really. I've got an idea to improve the third round as well in terms of as a spectacle. Now, it's never going to happen, right? I think if you are below the Premier League and you draw a club in your same division, you should redraw it. Because here's the thing, right? Nobody cares about Stoke versus Coventry, Hull versus Blackburn, Swansea versus West Brom, or Salford City versus Swindon, because they play each other twice in the season. They play each other for league points. I guarantee Hull versus Blackburn tomorrow has got less interest from the Hull and Blackburn fans it's got from anybody else either, because it's just like, oh, when you draw someone, it's like you're watching the draw live if you can find out when it's on, and you're watching the draw live and it goes Middles reverses, and you go, oh, Blackburn. It's like, ugh, just redraw it. I think if you draw someone in the same division, but not the Premier League, I want the Premier League to draw each other and knock a few of the buggers out
Oh,
early
I
on.
was, I was good. I was just going to say I would never
No,
want that in the Premier League because if you look at Chelsea for example, I think they every third fourth round draw they'll get like a low league team from non-league or
yeah,
League Two, League One
yeah.
every year,
I'll
and
check who they've got actually.
it happens for all of them nearly. Not all the time, but if you look at the third, fourth, fifth round draws for the likes of Chelsea, they always get low league opposition. It's literally like they're just desperate for these teams to get through to the last 16.
Yeah, they're
Whereas,
away at Charlton.
yeah, which is
Again, though, that's an FA
well,
Cup.
that's an interesting one. That actually for the first, that's not as bad. They usually get lower than that. I mean, Charlton might give them a game. I mean, but that's
Yeah,
one that God, you'd love Charlton to win that, wouldn't you?
God, yeah,
And but yeah, whereas generally, I know from an Everton point of view, now and again we get the odd good draw. But then, there was a couple of seasons on the bounce where we got Liverpool. It's like, well, that's our cup run out of the way then.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we've got Sunderland, who are flying, and we've got a decimated squad. There's a good chance we might get beaten tomorrow.
No, you've got Sunderland reserves tomorrow. I guarantee Sunderland you won't recognise there. So the players who got them promoted last season, who've not had a look in this
They'll
season,
probably play. Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
play. Having said that, the team who got promoted last season will probably give you a game, to be fair. But I guarantee tomorrow Sunderland will not pick the team that they would pick for a league game either side of that FA Cup third round game. We've already touched on that. They just won't.
I don't. Yeah, they might not, and that might be because they want to protect the squad that they've got, and they're doing really well in the Premier League. I get that to a degree, but again, I know it might be easy to see it, but we're fans. I don't think you should try and devalue anything. I just think you should go into it and just play your best team. Your fans, I think as well. As much as you want to sometimes enjoy seeing a kid give it a chance who's come through your academy and he's a local lad, all the fans want to do the best they can in the competitions. They're always rooting for their team to do the best they can. They want to progress and want to win something, particularly for a club that hasn't won anything in a long time. Middlesbrough do want to win something, but I can guarantee you the as a Middlesbrough fan, my hopes and dreams don't sit on winning an FA Cup or a League Cup.
No,
it would be lovely if we did, and I'd cherish the memory, and I want us to take it seriously and not devalue it. And I love a cup run and get involved in it. But it's interesting as an adopted Evertonian, Everton fans are 95 just hangs over them like the Grim Reaper. They're just desperate to get rid of that hoodoo because obviously they're taunted by Liverpool all the time. But just in general, not having won anything in 30 years, it becomes this thing that's just hanging over you.
Well, it was like Spurs with the Europa League. The monkey on their back was, Spurs. Oh yeah, you saw Spurs, you never win anything. Then they won the Europa League, and then they sacked Ange Postecoglou, didn't they?
Yeah. So Everton fans, I can feel it more that they desperately want it more than Middlesbrough fans are probably a lot more philosophical about a cup run.
I just want to beat a big club. I want to beat a big club and create a memory. And if that means that we beat a big club in round 3, round 4, and maybe go out in round 5, but got a memory created by that. And I think most lower non-Premier League fans accept that. A championship club is unlikely to win the FA Cup, so just create some memories along the way. But you create memories by being in it and investing in it, don't you?
Whereas I'd like to think the likes of Brighton, Bournemouth, Brentford and stuff would hopefully field strong teams because they've got really good teams, and I'd love to see the likes of them progress really well. I mean, Brentford came to Everton last Sunday. We were terrible, by the way, and we weren't great against Wolves the other night either. But Brentford were brilliant. They literally capitalised on all our mistakes, deserved the win. The scoreline was flattering. It shouldn't have been that. But, and again, one for another pod in the future, because we've talked about Keith Andrews and Brentford before and how they are the gift that just keeps on giving. They're amazing. But really good teams, really good players, and they're more than capable of putting really good cup runs together. I'm not saying for 1 second, fans of these clubs, that you'll field a weakened team. What I'm saying is I hope you don't, because I think you've got really good chances of progressing really far if you don't.
Sadly, though, Dom, I think they will. I think it'd be really interesting to see the team sheets tomorrow or over the weekend, the 4 days of these teams, and go, okay, they might field 5, regular starters, but the half the team will be, what you consider reserves or squad players at best. And I remember a few years ago when Eddie Howe was at Bournemouth when they were in the Prem, and before I went to Newcastle, and Bournemouth had a home game against someone a lot lower than them, and he fielded a really piss poor team, and they got knocked out, and their fans were furious. It's like it's still a fan experience. I'm going to Fulham tomorrow. I know what I'm going to see in terms of the players on the pitch. I don't expect a full team for either side, but for God's sake, I'm expecting Borough to put it, I want to create a memory. I want to beat a Premier League club who actually, by the way, are flying at the moment. Fulham, aren't
Yeah.
they? They're doing really well. I want to win at Craven Cottage, and I'll look forward to the draw on Monday night or at some point wherever I can find it on Monday night, and hope that we get a really big Premier League club either away because I love going to away games or at home at the Riverside under lights or at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. It won't be if we draw Arsenal or Liverpool or somebody or Everton. It won't. It'll be on telly because it'll be top
Yeah.
team in the Championship versus a Premier League club be on telly. So it's probably going to be Monday night at 4:30 in the morning or something. Whatever stupid time that TNT want to show it. But I want to create memories. The FA Cup for fans is about memories. For
Well,
clubs,
even more so now. Yeah, even more so now. When you look at, I mean, the Premier League is just turgid now. I mean, it's just
oh
got they're literally. I mean, VAR, the refereeing standards, just the standard of football in general. It's just dead. It's one of the most boring spectacles on the planet. I mean, it really is. I mean,
yeah.
and people who try and argue that it's not. I go every week. I watch it every week. And it's just piss poor.
Give me that second half of Borough versus Southampton
Oh, any day of the week. I
all
mean,
day
that's just
long.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't celebrate a goal. VAR's interfering where it doesn't need to be interfered with. Refereeing standards are weak as piss. Games stop start. You've got teams deliberately going, players going down for breaks and to break up the match. Players rolling around like they're dying when they get kicked, and then as soon as they get the free kick, they're up bouncing around, walking past the referee.
Yeah,
Literally just bought a free kick.
taking the piss.
It's just become this soulless spectacle where there's no risk anymore. No one tries to risk anything I mean, you get the odd classic game. That Leeds Newcastle game the other night was a belter, but generally. So my point on that being, when you get to the FA Cup, it almost feels a bit like a release from that dirge,
Yeah.
And if you see your team not taking it seriously because they're prioritising their position in the Premier League, it is a little bit soul destroying. Because sometimes you
Mm.
also have to ask yourself, what do you want from your football club and what do you want from your support? People keep talking about, the Premier League being the holy grail. Everything should be centric on getting to the Premier League. Well, I get it. If you're in the
Yeah.
Championship and you're competing at the top, if you're not bothered about going up, what you're doing it for? Because you want the opportunity to go up. You want the opportunity to create some more memories there. Maybe see what if you can do a Sunderland in there, etc., etc. All the things that go with that. But if you're derailing everything else, if that's all you're valuing in terms of either I want to be promoted to the Premier League or I want to stay in the Premier League, if you're one of the teams that's always at the bottom and always getting beat every week and you're just scraping to survive and it's all about
Yeah.
the money, that shouldn't be what it's about. You should be, in which case you should then be focusing and thinking, well, my God, the League Cup and the FA Cup are our little avenues away from this
But
to give our
also
fans
from a
something
fan's point
amazing,
of view, yeah, from a
to
fan's
give
point
our
of
fans
view,
something else that they can get behind.
interesting
And it
and
feels it
fun.
lightens the load from the Premier League or the Championship. There's definitely a different feel about cup games because it does feel like, well, it's this or nothing today. We've got to go for
Mm.
it. And I suppose that's the only thing where you think now that replays aren't part of it. At least you're thinking, well, at least the clubs can't just sit around and kick a ball around and think, oh, we can get it on the replay. There's got to be an end to it. And
Yeah.
at least you're not thinking, oh, there's 3 points riding on this. So it does have a nice feel about it.
But going back to what you said about the turgidness and the play acting and the rolling around and the faking injuries or whatever, I don't think Bob, the taxi driver who plays for a non-league club or a low league club, is going to do that. I think there's an honesty about Cambridge versus Birmingham. I think there's an honesty about Derby versus Leeds. I think there's, Leeds, by the way, I'll be really intrigued to see what team they pick. I think they'll pick reserve team, which is why their fans say the fourth round draw is just a Monday because they've got such a bad record. But there'll be an honesty about these, lower league teams playing in the FA Cup. They're not there to roll around. I've seen highlight packages of round one and round two. Boreham Wood versus God knows who, Macclesfield, for example. And yeah, okay, the quality's suspect in terms of it's nowhere near Premier League standard, but there's a proper truth and honesty about the games, and it's like
Absolutely.
wow, there's no VAR, There's some tackles going in. You get tackled, you get back up. It's just raw. It's just better. And all I want to finish with is I would hope, and it is a hope rather than expectation, that we can, in some way, shape, or form, rekindle the love for the FA Cup as a competition at the heart of English football. I think it's long gone because of all the things we've talked about. I think the days of us, the final used to be an appointment of you, didn't it? You'd watch the Saint and Greavesy, you'd watch
I'd
them.
watch the whole day.
Yeah, the whole day.
Watch the
You'd watch
whole
them in the
day.
hotel,
You'd flick between
having
channels,
breakfast.
wouldn't you? It was a big thing when you saw the team get on the bus to go there, and then you'd see them in walking around the stadium in their suits, and you'd even going back into the 90s, watching what suits they'd be wearing, and looking at the Liverpool and the Spice Boys and those cream suits. But yeah, but football back, and I know we probably sound a bit cheesy, a bit corny, but football felt more honest then. You actually felt more in touch with the players then as well, because it was a different time. You've got football now. It's you're dealing with multi-millionaires, even at championship level sometimes. These gated communities where you can't speak to these players and they walk around with their headphones. You actually did feel more in touch with players back then. It had a more honest feel about it, and you enjoyed the whole day. It was something really special. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm much more engaged in the earlier rounds, and I'll only watch the FA Cup final if I look at it and think, well, there's two teams are quite fantastic. Like I watched last season because it was Palace, and one of our listeners, Will, who will hopefully be listening to this pod at some point, who lives in America, and he's a avid Palace fan, and he was at the FA Cup final last year, and he said best day of his life, one of the best days of his life. And he said, I'll never, ever forget that. And he said, it'll just live forever. It's burned in my brain. And that's what it's about. That's exactly what it's about as a fan.
How did they get there? They took the third round, fourth round, fifth round seriously, played the right teams, and went for it
in the final as well.
And that's all I hope that we see.
That's what I hope we see as well. I hope we see more of that, mate, because we need to have that, and we need it to be that other teams get there where neutral teams get there where people go, I want to watch that final. Because let's be honest, sometimes if it's just City Liverpool or something like that, are you really as invested? I'm
Chelsea,
not.
Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Man United. Like, no one cares.
I'm not interested. No.
A bit like no one cares about Spurs versus Villa on the BBC. I hope 3 people watch that, and 2 of them are the players' mums. I don't know. Anyway, I want to finish with the story. It's nothing to do with the FA Cup, but this came up this week. I saw this. It's nothing to do with the FA Cup, but it's to do with the fan experience, right? And a Hull fan was due to go to Millwall away in December. And he looked at the cost of going to Millwall away in December, which included a hotel. Don't know why you need a hotel if you're going from Hull to London in a day and back, but including a hotel was going to be train tickets, food, accommodation, match tickets, etc., 270 quid. He decided not to go to Millwall away in December, and he's decided to go to the African Cup of Nations quarter-final in Marrakesh to support Sami Ajayi, who's a Hull player, who's in the semi-final, in the quarter-finals of the African Cup of Nations. He's gone to Marrakesh to watch a game for 196 quid versus 270 quid to go to a game in London. I just think, nothing to do with the FA Cup. I just saw that this week. I thought, I've got to share that on the pod. That's astonishing, isn't it? It's like, right, I'll go with Sami Ajayi in the African Cup of Nations in Marrakesh. I get a bit of winter sun for an overnight stay. And it's much better than going to Millwall in December, I would suspect. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's fantastic. I love it in terms of what it represents. I also find it tragically sad that that's how much it costs. And again, we've mentioned it before, and I'm sure we'll mention it again. I was reading recently, just this week, Paul Scholes commenting again, and I love Scholesy, and he was talking about the FA Cup and other matches and just saying, it's not right. The Man United are charging 50, 60 quid a ticket. He said for a family to go and watch a game of football now, it's over 200 quid. He said it's just not right. And that's cheap. Everton's the same. If you're not a season ticket holder, they have category games now, and some are like 70 odd quid, and it's like, really? It's just wrong. It's wrong. And that leads into that story you've just done perfectly, because once you get your match ticket, and he's just talking about on his own there. But if you want to go with a mate and you travel, your tickets, everything else, it's not a simple day out anymore, is it?
No.
It really isn't. It should be all about honest, fair prices. You should be making it all about the fan. You should be getting your revenue elsewhere. The fan experience and the fan tickets should be really good value. And yeah, I think that's wonderful. Good deal that though, getting to Marrakesh and there's match ticket for that price. Good on him.
It is. Listen, mate, because my screen's frozen on me. I'm going to finish the pod now with the screens that we usually use for those who watch on YouTube. That has been What's Wrong with the FA Cup in 2025, and the reality is,
2026 or 20, oh, 2025, 26. Yes, you're right.
yeah,
I think you got the
okay,
wrong
it
year
should say
there, but
2020.
yeah,
It should say 25, 26. To be fair, but well picked up. The reality of that is, let's hope that we can get it back. Let's hope that fans embrace it. Let's hope that there's some really. I'd love some big upsets this weekend. I
I
just
would.
would, just to take it from there. Now, what we got in episode 31 is we're going to do a bit of an update on the managerial merry-go-round. We did a big episode on episode 9. We're going to do a quick update on where our predictions came to. We're going to start with an apology to someone as well. And then we're going to look at what the current managerial merry-go-round looks like, because it's fair to say, guys and listeners and ladies and whoever's watching and listening, it's been a bit of a shitstorm this last couple of weeks in terms
It
of
has.
manager land, hasn't it? So let's take our view on that on episode 31. But that's been episode 30. What's Wrong with the FA Cup in 2025-26? Well spotted, Dom. Thank you for your contributions as ever, mate. We'll see you on the next episode. Maybe not looking like an architect.
Yes. Yeah. I'll make an effort on the next one. I promise. Thanks, mate. Enjoyed that.
All right. See you soon, mate.
See you
Cheers.
soon, mate.